Hello everyone, welcome back. In our last session, we completed the topology of the body model. Now we are familiar with the entire process of topology. Although the topology is done, the model isn't quite finished yet. In this session, we'll start working on some remaining components. This will involve making the interior of the mouth, such as the gums, teeth, tongue, and claws. Alright, no more delays, let's dive into the next phase. Let's start with the mouth area. In the last lesson, we did most of the topology for the body model, but the lips were not sculpted, so we didn't work on them during the topology phase. Now, before we move on to making the internal structure of the mouth, let's first create the structure of the lips. Before we get started, let's determine our overall approach of production. In the mouth area, we need to create the lips, gums, teeth, and tongue. The structures of the gums, teeth, and tongue are relatively complex, so we'll create separate meshes for them. As for the lips, we'll continue extruding them from the body model and sculpting them inward to create their structure. Alright, let's start by creating the structure of the lips. First, select the loop of vertices along the edge of the mouth and extrude a loop inward directly. In order to see that clearly, let's jump into wireframe mode and adjust the position from different angles until it looks right. Now, let's divide this loop into front and side sections and begin by selecting the vertices on the side and extruding them towards the center. Let's go inside the mouth to adjust the positions. Next, we will fill the unclosed faces in the front. Let's count the number of vertices: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 vertices in total. We'll add 8 more edges on the back side. Press Ctrl+R to add them, then change the count to 8. Now, let's fill this area. Let's tidy up the positioning of the edges here. Okay, the upper lip looks not bad. Let's move on to the lower lip, using the same method. After selecting a portion of the lower lip, press Shift+H to hide everything except the portion we selected. You can see there are too many edges on the back side. Press Alt+H to display the upper lip. Then go back into the mouth to adjust the number of edges. Since we'll need to extrude deeper into the mouth and towards the rear of the throat, let's temporarily delete the posterior portion of faces. Select those faces and delete them. This will simplify some edges of the lower lip to match the number of vertices at the front. Alright, let's select the lower lip area again and press Shift+H to solo it. Now we can adjust the number of vertices based on the count at the front. Select some edges and press X, then choose Dissolve Edges. Now we can select the corresponding vertices to connect to. Okay, we've closed the surfaces of both the upper and lower lips. Next, let's return to the upper lip. Select this portion of faces and extrude them upwards to create the interior space of the mouth. Similarly, for the lower lip, extrude downwards to form the interior space of the lower mouth. Now, back inside the model, delete the faces at the posterior part. We'll need this part later to create structures deeper inside the mouth. Next, we need to add some intermediate edges to the area we extruded earlier to adjust the shape. This is to prevent affecting the outer model while adjusting the inner part of the mouth. To do this, select the faces inside the mouth and press Shift+H to solo them. Now we can add the intermediate edges without worrying about affecting other areas. Let's smooth out the shape a bit more. Switch to the side view and select the loop of vertices at the posterior part of the mouth to extrude the inner space of the mouth. Add some intermediate edges. Now, let's take a look at the effect of the mouth model inside. Next, we'll refine the internal structures for the upper and lower lips separately. Select a loop of vertices on the side, switch to vertex mode, and hide them with H. Then, hover the cursor over the area of the lower lip and press L to select it. Press Shift plus H to solo it. Let's add another loop of edges here. Smooth out the edges. The smoothing doesn't work. Let's check the specifics. First, let's see if it's a normal direction issue. Enter Edit mode, select all the meshes, then press Shift plus N to correct the normal directions and try smoothing again. Still not smoothing properly. It might be due to some accidentally enabled automatic masking. Press Alt plus A to examine. Looks like cavity got turned on at some point. Let's turn it off. Now, smooth it again. It works. The brush strength is too strong. Let's undo with Ctrl plus Z. Adjust the brush strength and then sculpt again. Alright, let's continue smoothing along this edge. When sculpting inside the mouth, we need to keep an eye on the outside as well because the distance between these two parts is very close, and sculpting might affect each other. To prevent this, we need to modify the brush settings. Press N to open the N panel of 3D view. Alright, we should enable screencast keys here. In the N panel, find the Tools section, and under Advanced Category, enable Front Faces Only. Now the parts below the mouth won't be affected. Let's smooth it out and see, there, not affected below. Alright, now let's focus on creating the structure for the lower lip. Let's find the reference images we prepared earlier. Here's the reference for the mouth. Now, let's create the structure of the lips according to the reference. For the lips, we can divide them into two main parts to work on: the black part on the side of the lips and the structure of a version at the front. Let's get started. First, we'll use Inflate brush to give thickness to the front of the lips. For the side part, let's select some vertices and try moving them upwards. We might need to enable fall off. It's a bit tricky to adjust that. Let's double tap R to change rotation method to trackball, and rotate downwards to give the inner side of the lips some rotation outward, creating a slight eversion effect. Based on that, let's adjust this circle shape inside the mouth. It's this circle according to the reference. Let's enter sculpt mode to adjust the structure here. One thing to note is that the structure on the inner side actually overlaps with the lips. Since the lips are on the outside, we need to be mindful of this during creation. It is a bit inconvenient to adjust it directly, so let's try extruding. Select this portion of faces. Press E to extrude upwards. order to have a smooth transition with the surrounding structure, we need to adjust the edges here. Okay, let's enter Sculpt mode and modify the shape here again. Let's display the structure of the upper lip and adjust it accordingly. Now, we are going to use the topology option in the auto mask during sculpting. If it's disabled, sculpting the lower lip might affect the upper lip as well. With topology enabled, the software will automatically recognize the model's topology, so adjusting the lower lip won't affect the upper lip. Now let's go back to the outside of the mouth and adjust the overall structure of the mouth. Alright, the structure of the mouth looks much better now. Next, let's display the lower lip separately and then adjust the mesh inside the lip. Let's smooth out the mesh inside with Smooth Brush. Currently, we can see that the wireframe around the lips is not evenly distributed. The outer edges are sparse while the inner ones are dense. Let's try using the Slide Relax brush to smooth out the mesh here. The smoothing effect isn't ideal, so let's manually adjust it. Enter Edit mode. Let's select these edges and adjust them until they look even. Alright, let's jump into Sculpt mode to adjust the mesh in other areas. The lower lip is done. Let's continue to refine the upper lip. Select the mesh of the upper lip and solo it with Shift+H for adjustment. We need to add another loop of edges here. Let's adjust the structure inside the upper lip with sculpting. Alright, let's return to the outside of the model to refine it further. The mesh around the corners of the mouth needs some further refinement. It's a bit distorted here. Let's continue refining the structure of the mouth. We need to adjust the shape of the lower lip from the bottom view. Let's refer to the reference on the right and find the reference of the mouth we previously located. Let's adjust the shape and structure of the mouth according to the reference. Alright, it is done for the mouth section. Let's further adjust the structure of the mouth and nose according to the reference. We need to add another edge here in the nose area to create the groove between the nose and the mouth. There are still some issues around the corners of the mouth. Let's manually tweak the vertex positions here to make them more even. There aren't enough edges here, so let's add another one to alleviate the problem around the corners of the mouth. Then, let's enter sculpt mode to refine it further. After the tweaking, it looks much better around the corners of the mouth. Previously, when we were creating the nostrils and eyes, the faces inside were left open. Now that the body model is mostly complete, we can fill these areas. Here, we'll use the tool introduced earlier, Grid Fill. Select a loop of vertices, find Grid Fill, and then smooth it out. There's another issue with the eyes. You can see that the number of vertices in the inner loop of the eyes is 49, which is an odd number and can't be filled with Grid Fill. So, we need to add another etch. Smooth out the mesh again. Back to Edit mode, select this loop of vertices, use Grid Fill, and then adjust the values.
Okay.
Smooth it out once more, and it's done. With the completion of the internal structure of the mouth, the body model is now fully finished.